Finally, I'd like to talk about spiritual naturalism as a way of life, and I'd like to introduce the concept of becoming a citizen of the cosmos. Let's begin with a quote from physicist Lawrence Krauss, who says, "The universe is the way it is whether we like it or not." This points to a simple fact. The universe is a causal web in which we don't decide the rules. It is not the way we might otherwise wish it to be. Now, there are two possible responses to this. The first response is passive acceptance of fate. Basically, what this amounts to is an attitude of helplessness before the way it is. There's nothing we can do, so why care? Why try to make ourselves better? But there's another response. The other possibility is to take active participation in the universe as true cosmopolitans. And I mean cosmopolitans in the original root sense of the word. The root meaning cosmo, meaning cosmos, and politans meaning citizens, citizens of the cosmos. This notion actually comes from ancient Greece and is based on the ancient Greek word kosmein, which is where we get the word cosmos from. And also we should note that at that time in history, cosmos meant the world to them. So if thinking on universal scales doesn't trip your trigger, then you can think about something much closer to home and still be true to the ancient meaning of the word. You can think about the planet Earth or life or your society even, as long as it's larger than you. In ancient Greek, kosmein meant to order and arrange. For example, troops in battle. To establish, for example, a government or regime, or to deck, adorn, equip, or dress, especially of women. And as we can see from these three root meanings, it's about a well-ordered whole, which is how Oxford Dictionaries defines it. So, in other words, cosmos, far from being a mere synonym of universe, is actually a perception of the universe as orderly and beautiful. It is, in fact, a cognitive appraisal in response to the universe itself as the stimuli, and it conjures up feelings of awe and wonder. Let's put that in slightly different terms, this time using night language. Speaking of Mother Nature, we are one of the flecks in one of the diamonds, in one of the barrettes in her flowing hair. We are part of an orderly and beautiful whole. When we grasp this, when we grasp our participation in this kind of universe, one that is not as we might wish, but is nevertheless orderly and beautiful, when we grasp our status as citizens of the cosmos, so to speak, we can at last understand what B.T. Strain meant by the quote that we looked at in the beginning of the course, where he talked about freedom from the bonds of circumstance. Once again, his quote was this: "This, meaning spiritual naturalism, is nothing less than a path to freedom, freedom from fear and from the bonds of circumstance as a condition for happiness." He's using the bonds of circumstance as a metaphor for the attitude of helplessness before the universe. But with all that we've learned, we are shackled no longer. A path to freedom. He's not talking about freedom from causation. He's talking about freedom from helplessness in the face of causation. What we can do is work within the causal web of the cosmos, taking responsibility for our own happiness as active, self-aware participants in the cosmos. This is what makes us free. We don't become free from the natural universe in some kind of supernatural way. Absolutely not. We become free within the natural universe, free from helplessness. If we look at the image on the left here, we see a crow flying amid some clouds, and in the center you can see what is actually an eclipse of the sun. When we embrace our place within the universe, with all the scary and terrifying aspects of it, we can become like the crow in this image. Despite an eclipse which so terrified our ancestors as if the very order of the universe were breaking down, this crow flies free, undisturbed by clouds nor even by eclipse of the sun. This becomes a way of life. How do we do this? How do we take responsibility for happiness? Summing up what we've learned in this course, we can value emotion, value subjectivity. Remember, happiness is part of our subjective lives. We have to grant, first of all, that that is something worth doing something about. Second, we can flow with nature, not against it. Finally, we can practice to retrain our habits of thought and action to be conducive to happiness. Let's review the basic steps of doing this. First of all, the foundational skill that makes everything else we've learned in this course possible is mindfulness. Before we can make any change in our life, we need to notice that a change needs making. So mindfulness is foundational. Then, when we encounter something that is threatening to carry us off in a direction we don't want to go, what we can do is follow the 3 broadening steps. Noticing, using mindfulness to notice it's happening, observing, watching carefully as from a third-person perspective until you feel able to move on to the final step, broadening, opening to a wider perspective than just this present moment. And from there, we open a space in which a change can happen. And actually, if nothing else in this course has made sense to you, or if you remember nothing else, this right here, this is the core. This is enough. In fact, this is the essentials of my own daily practice. This is what I do day to day. Everything beyond this is variations on a theme. But to go into those variations, we have learned a number of general skills to help us with this, which are then implemented through specific practices. Let's review those. In this course, we've learned a number of general skills which are listed according to the different themed lessons we've had. Emotion skills, reason skills, and practice skills. And we can train these skills, usually more than one at a time and in a holistic way with more conventional practices, which we see here. On the left are more traditionally religious ones like meditation and so on, and on the right are the ones that, today at least, seem more secular to us, like dance. All of these are ways to instantiate and train up our skills so that we can achieve happiness. These practices, of course, depend on the community that you're coming from, but we all get at the same core ideas of learning to respond appropriately to each moment as it comes. And as we do this, let's not forget that even though what we're practicing is self-cultivation, we do have effects beyond ourselves. We have ripple effects. Even the smallest drop ripples throughout the ocean. First of all, our work can be an inspiration to others. Not that we do it for that reason, but it can have that effect. Secondly, it empowers us to be effective agents at the causes we choose, whatever that may be for you. And finally, when we do this, self-cultivation reveals our participation in the whole. We've talked about how the small self, the individual self, our point of consciousness, when we reason it through, is revealed to be a part of something much larger. And when we identify with this whole, then we are actually motivated to take action benefiting the whole. And that then benefits all who are within the whole. So self-cultivation not only helps us to have more meaningful lives, but has these ripple effects that go beyond us. These are the effects of active spiritual naturalists. We take action in the world, and that action flows from what we've cultivated through paths rooted in naturalism and spirituality. Embracing the worldview of naturalism, we accept that only natural causes can affect the universe. Nothing outside nature, nothing supernatural can do so. In embracing spirituality, we seek the spirit or essence of life, endeavoring to make each moment count. Together, these conduce to an active, ethical, and worthwhile existence. In summary, by rejecting the attitude of helplessness represented by the bonds of circumstance, we throw off these bonds and take responsibility for our own happiness as active citizens of an orderly and beautiful cosmos. So as we return to the quote by Lawrence Krauss, "The universe is the way it is whether we like it or not," we can respond by saying, "Yes, and I fully accept the universe, whether it is as I wish or not. I choose to appraise this universe just as it is, as something orderly and beautiful. This universe, this world, this existential condition, this state of being, is that in which I find my larger context. In it, I find the one and only life I shall ever have, the one and only home I shall ever have, and I accept responsibility to make the most of each moment here in this cosmos." The universe, the world, life, whatever you want to call it, can appear bleak, but notice that this image, which might be described as a dark and unrelenting void, is actually an image of a constellation cherished by many, the Southern Cross. Now, I'm not going to point out where the constellation is because you can look and discover your own patterns in this. But the point is this: when those who see a pattern look at this, instead of seeing a nothing, they see a something. That is what it means to be a spiritual naturalist.